It's so nice to see you. I'm Suzanne Kelly, CEO and publisher of the Cipher Brief, coming to you from the West Coast today for this special summer summit from the Cyber Initiatives Group with my co-host, Matt Hayden. Hey, Matt.
Hey, happy to be here.
Nice to have you here. Matt is, we got to do like a proper introduction of you. You have like such extraordinary experience. Matt is currently with GDIT. I should let you do the intro.
So I'm currently with GDIT running the as Vice President of Cyber and Emerging Threats over in the Intel and Homeland Security Division, and really basing a lot of those insights off of my time in government, in which I was Assistant Secretary for Cyber Infrastructure, Risk, and Resilience Policy.
Yeah, it's nice to have you here, Matt. And you and I have done this now multiple times, and really kind of I want to explain to folks what the SIG is for those folks who are new to it. The Cyber Initiatives Group is a group of folks like Matt who have deep experience both on the government side of cyber and the private sector. We get together 4 times a year virtually to set meetings and talk about really what's top of mind for everyone from their different perspectives. I really encourage you to check out the cyberinitiativesgroup.com website. You'll see all the principles listed there. It's really an extraordinary group of people. And we do these 4 virtual sessions a year as well. They're free and open to everyone. Which really allows us to share kind of top of mind insights. So if you're working cyber and trying to understand what the threats mean at a mid-level company, at a small company, wherever you are on the grid, we're here to kind of like share insights with you and hope that it's helpful. You can always send us feedback as well on what you think is today's session. So we have a chat box on the right-hand side where you can submit questions at any time, and as the conversations go, Matt or I will be happy to introduce those questions for you. I want to thank our sponsor of the Cyber Initiatives Group, Microsoft, for their outstanding support of allowing us to bring you these conversations that are free and open to everyone. And we'll be hearing from a couple of the folks on the Microsoft team on their views on a few things in cyber and AI and other related things throughout the day today. I also really want to welcome Rob Joyce as a new principal member of the Cyber Initiatives Group. Matt, I know you've had the chance to work with Rob over the years. I think he's just an outstanding addition to this group.
He is. I mean, we all have our great resumes, but Rob Joyce is a great voice to bring to this conversation.
Yeah, I think so as well. So we're looking forward to welcoming Rob to our future sessions. And you can get a whole date on when the fall and the winter sessions are scheduled at cyberinitiativesgroup.com as well. And hey, while you're there, I hope you'll consider signing up for the Sunday newsletter. It's a once-a-week newsletter. It really kind of captures the week prior, all those headlines that you may have missed, and then it captures the week ahead. So I encourage you to check that out. Well, one of the things, Matt, that we talked a lot about during the planning session about 6 weeks ago was how the real world is now meeting cyber in almost everything that we discuss. So we thought right off the top here, we'd give everybody kind of a little bit of a sneak peek into how those planning sessions go by welcoming 2 of our other principal members. I'd like to welcome Michael Daniel, who is President and CEO of the Cyber Threat Alliance. A lot of you know him as well from his time at the White House, and Mark Montgomery, who's the former Executive Director of the Cyberspace Solarium Commission and continues to work on those same issues and implementing those same recommendations that the commission made, both of them principal members. Gentlemen, welcome. It's really nice to see you.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's nice to see you, Mark. I'm glad you combed your hair. Thank you for that. We were joking just before we came on camera. I'd really love to kind of share with folks how these principal planning sessions work. And one of the things that we do really is just go round table and say what's top of mind for you right now. And I think that's a great way to launch. So Matt, why don't I turn it over to you to kind of tee up what some of your thoughts were early on, and then we'll just go around the table.
Absolutely. So all things China have always been one of those starting points whenever we have these conversations, because they're just such an active player in the cyberspace. So I'll turn to you, Michael, on that perspective. What are you seeing top of mind just with the China in place, and then we'll jump over to Mark.
Yeah, I think when you talk about the Chinese threat, it's a very interesting one because it's different than a lot of the other cyber threats that we face, in the sense that the Chinese are not necessarily seeking to disrupt and destroy the existing order. They want to adapt it and shape it more to their interests, right? As opposed to a Russia or Iran or a North Korea. And so they're a very different pacing threat. That's a term that you'll hear Mark probably use, but they're very much the pacing threat for us. They're also very, recently we've seen the level of activity increase in our critical infrastructure where we are finding Chinese government presence in places where they have no other purpose other than to hold that critical infrastructure at risk in the event of a conflict heating up. There's no intelligence value, there's no intellectual property value. The only reason you would be there is to cause harm to the United States in the event of a conflict. And they're using very sophisticated techniques. You often will hear me say that, everybody says that they were the victim of a sophisticated cyber intrusion, and most of the time that's absolutely not true. It's usually fairly mundane, pedestrian things. In this case, it's actually true. These actors are using very sophisticated techniques that are very difficult to detect. And so that makes this a very challenging threat. So certainly from my perspective, that is something that we really have to be focused on. And I give the US government a lot of credit for being very open and transparent about a lot of about this threat in a way to try to get the private sector to take some action.
And Mark, with all that in mind, a lot of our conversations at the prep conversations are about where does industry and government need to align to move the needle in the right direction. What are your thoughts in taking in that conversation?
Thanks. So first, I want to thank Suzanne for putting these on. I love these 6 summits. It's the 6th or 7th one I've watched, and probably the 3rd or 4th one I participated in. And I liked Michael's answer. I'd pick up that on Michael's and then go into answering a question that, the Chinese have also, I agree, they've shifted off of intellectual property theft and espionage, and they've really spent the last year reorganizing. They're continuing to build at a rate that is significantly fast. Their number of on-net operators who can do mischief is growing rapidly, while ours has been fairly fixed over a decade. And what we're seeing is what I'd call in the military operational preparation of the environment. They are creating the conditions for future problems for us. So that leads to the question you're asking, which is, how do we respond to that? And the answer is, we're really at that point where if you're one of the critical infrastructures, it's a have-not. And I won't list the have-nots because it's too long. I'll just list the haves and say, if you're not financial services or electrical power or the defense industrial base or telecommunications, you should be extremely nervous. Even those 4 should be nervous, but the others should be extremely nervous because either there's a mix of you're not investing enough, the government hasn't figured out how to help you, and the 2 of you don't work well together. Mm-hmm. And all 3 of those attributes apply to almost every infrastructure other than the 4 I mentioned. And so, industry does have to invest more, but the government has to provide better services, right? In other words, if we were in an undersea warfare fight, there are times when the Air Force, running satellites, or Space Force running satellites, supports the Navy hunting submarines. I mean, we do this in other mission areas, but when it comes to this cyber mission area, the minute the bad news is inside the United States, working against the U.S. critical infrastructure, the Department of Defense is like, well, Title 10, legally respond, and they step back. And they're happy to do it because they don't have enough forces to do their offensive mission, much less their defensive offensive mission. So I say that in the context of, in many aspects, the U.S. government is not a good partner to those critical infrastructures. And then finally, in basic blocking and tackling of collaboration, having a good sector coordinating council, having a good government coordinating council, having effective ISACs, information sharing systems, they don't do it. I mean, that's why Michael's his organization exists, because the government couldn't do what he's doing in a 23-year effort. And so from my perspective, the industry needs to do better. They need to do more things like Michael does at Cyber Threat Alliance. They need to invest more. And then the government needs to be a much better partner, and we can unpack that later.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's such a phenomenal lineup. And I'm going to run through kind of how we're tackling all these issues in just a minute, but first to you, Matt.
I was just going to say that this is the challenge we have with all of these quarterly calls is that, how do you squeeze it all in? It sounds like, oh, we've got a couple hours, we can hit all of these, but there really is so much great content to bring to bear.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. A lot of folks a lot of these sessions are scheduled for 30 minutes. Our longest session today is only going to be 45. It's really not enough time to get everything in there, but that's why we continue to bring you sort of the latest thinking from all of these experts, and we pick up on a lot of these topics and then publish from today. You can find that actually at the cypherbrief.com, also at the cyberinitiativesgroup.com. And then we're sharing clips from all of today's sessions on the Cipher Briefs YouTube channel as well, so that you can go back and watch and share with your colleagues. And I hope that you find enough value in the conversations today. I know you will, that you'll want to do that. So you brought up China. That was a huge theme at the principals meeting. One thing that's not on the agenda here today that we will be tackling is space. We'll be doing that on our online versions, because that was another huge one, Matt. I know that you in particular brought up. We're going to be talking about disruption in the private sector. Companies are really capable of moving into that disruption space. So what's legal? What are the boundaries? And Mark, you perfectly sort of teed this up with the Title 10, Title 50, critical infrastructure. Everyone's now targeting it. And I think, Mark, it might have been you during that planning call that said, people are still going after low-hanging fruit, which is still there, but the capabilities are also getting far more sophisticated. So we're looking forward to kind of getting a great breakdown on that. We're going to be talking a lot about China. We're going to be hearing from the private sector, so I'm glad as well that that was brought up. And then we're kind of doing a level set on AI today. Development, capabilities, impact, and control. We're, if you guys can believe it, we're 5 months away from a US presidential election. So we're going to be covering election security and disinformation and how difficult that is, of course, to target. And then we're finally ending the day-to-day with a conversation about attribution. The nature of attribution is definitely changing, but is it getting better? So that's the big tease for our final session this afternoon. We've got an all-star lineup for you. Gentlemen, I think we should get right to our first session. I want to thank you so much for taking part in the quick little principals roundtable right now. We're looking forward to hearing from all of you again throughout the day.